Goodbye to 2014. We are only 3 hours and a half to the new year 2015. In some parts of the world, like Australia, it's already a happy new year. On this New Year's Eve, a lot of news making headlines, including the confusion surrounding the digital migration slated for midnight tonight. We have that and so much more coming up right here on Ebru Africa Primetime News with me, Sam Gakunyi. First, let's have a look at the news highlights.
Joseph Boynet hails from Kaplan, Keyo District.
President Uhuru Kenyatta nominates Joseph Boynet for Inspector General of Police post.
The analog switch-off process is still on.
Midnight tonight, digital TV broadcasting in Nairobi and its environs takes effect.
There will be no need for schools to open, with our teachers reporting to duty.
Teachers strike in the offing as Kuppet issues a strike notice. Gambia political instability, coup attempt foiled.
Many thanks for joining us. In our top story tonight, the Ministry of Information, Communication and Technology has confirmed that the digital migration switch-off meant for tonight will still go on as scheduled. 3 media stations yesterday challenged the exercise on an application to the Supreme Court requesting for more time.
The media stations had earlier placed a petition to the Supreme Court. The judge issuing the order granted that the licenses belonging to the 3 stations not to be cancelled.
One relates to the cancellation of the licenses of the media operators. The other one related to the switch off, or to the whether the media houses will continue with analog broadcasting or not. That prayer regarding whether the media will be allowed to continue with analog broadcasting was not granted. It is for that reason that we are saying that the analog switch-off process is still on.
The ministry confirms the switch-off for Nairobi and its environs will take place as scheduled at 11:59 p.m. or after the presidential New Year address to the nation, whichever comes later.
The Gazette notice has not been set aside. The timetable for digital migration begins tonight, and we will continue to follow this timetable as stated, and it affects everyone.
For the rest of the country, the switch-off will take place in 2 phases.
Mombasa, Malindi, Nyeri, Meru, Kisumu, Webuye, Kakamega, Kisii, Nakuru, Nyahururu, Nyadundo, Machakos, Narok, Londiani, Rongai, 2nd February 2015. Garissa, Kitui, Lodwar, Lokichogio, Kapenguria, Kabranet, Migori, Voi, Mbuinzao, Kibwezi, Namanga, and all other remaining sites, 30th March 2015.
The hearing to the court application shall be heard on the 5th of January 2015.
Now we continue with the conversation on digital migration. Tonight I'm joined in studio by Alfred Ambani. He is the Assistant Director, Multimedia Services at the Communications Authority of Kenya. Mr. Alfred, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now to our viewers tonight, as we go off in about 3 hours or so, there's a bit of a confusion. There was a Supreme Court ruling yesterday that we imagined stopped the digital migration, but the Communications Authority of Kenya and the Ministry of Information declares that the switch off is on tonight. Clear for us the air.
Oh, thank you, Sam. I want to thank you and Ebru Station for inviting us. And I think this is part of our consumer education,
yes.
Because Kenyans need to know where we are headed to.
Yes.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think I will try to explain that particular order, yes, of the Supreme Court,
yes,
as explained this morning during the other press briefing.
Yes.
Yesterday, on 30th of December 2014, and you'll allow me to refer to the details of the prayers that were sought by the three media houses,
yes,
as well as the order of the Supreme Court.
yes.
One of the prayers that the three media houses, that is Nation Media Group, Standard Group, as well as Royal Media Services, yes, sought is that, one, that this application be certified as urgent and admitted for hearing during the current vacation, yes, and be heard ex parte for the first instance. The prayer number 2 was pending the hearing and determination of this application, yes, inter partes, yes, an interim order be issued staying the analog switch-off dates are set by the Communications Authority of Kenya on 28th November 2014, and I won't go into details, yes, but the
just
short,
tell us what the
yes,
judge ruled yesterday.
Yes, the short of it is there are 3 phases of switch off, yes, starting with Nairobi on 31st of December, which is actually tonight, yes, at midnight, yes, and then the second phase will take place in major towns on 2nd of February. The final phase will take place on 30th of March 2015.
So you confirm to us that the digital migration is happening and analog TV stations will be switched off tonight?
Yes, and maybe I would like to just go to some bit of the detail, because the ruling or the order of the Supreme Court was, yes, very, very clear, because the third prayer that they actually sought, yes, was that the Communication Authority be restrained from cancelling the broadcasting licenses of the 3 yes, respondents, yes, and that there 3 respondents also be allowed to continue broadcasting on the analog broadcasting frequencies, yes, while they put in place their digital broadcasting infrastructure.
Yes.
So in the ruling of the Supreme Court, the following orders were issued. One, yes, that yes, the notice of motion was certified as urgent. Yes. Secondly, that an order of status quo as regards broadcasting licenses of the first, second, and third respondents in terms of prayer number 3, yes, of the application be and is hereby granted until 5th January 2015. And then that this order be served ex parte. Yes.
When you're speaking of status quo, what is the status, yes, quo in regard to this ruling?
Yes, the Supreme Court specifically did not issue the second part of that prayer number 3, yes, which the prayer was that the 3 respondents be allowed to continue analog, yes, broadcasting while they put in place, yes, the necessary infrastructure to migrate to the digital broadcasting. You know, they are putting up their own infrastructure so that they can broadcast on their own infrastructure. Yes. That is the second part of that prayer. That was not granted. Yes. And also, notably, the Supreme Court did not also grant prayer number 2, which sought that the analog switch off for various areas, yes, as outlined by the Communication Authority, yes, is stayed. Yes. So it is under these premises that the Communication Authority is going forward with the analog switch off as earlier notified to these 3 media houses, yes, and not only them. There are actually a total of 10 media houses which are affected in the analog switch off of tonight in Nairobi.
Now, the battle that we've been seeing between the Communications Authority of Kenya, the Ministry of Information, and these 3 media houses is some of the challenges that you've been facing in coming to this date. What are the other challenges apart from that we've faced in trying to migrate from analog TV to digital TV?
Yes, the migration has actually faced a number of challenges, but first of all, I would like to point out that the challenges concerning these 3 media houses has mainly been litigation. Yes. You know, litigation upon litigation. We should have migrated in 2012, yes, but here we are in 2014, we have not migrated. Yes. And as a result of that, obviously one of the biggest challenges has been that because of uncertainty in the industry, yes, it has scared away investments in terms of new broadcasters who want to come in, but they are not sure whether we are going to migrate or not. Yes. There has been that uncertainty. Then there are also other investors, like, for example, set-top box vendors. They bring in large stocks of set-top boxes, expecting that when Kenyans migrate, they need these gadgets to be able to see the digital signal. Yes. But what happens is that when the digital migration date is put off, it means that the Kenyan consumers do not buy this set of boxes. Now, a number of these people have taken loans, and they start going under.
Yes.
On the policy side, initially the policy was that the subsidiary of KBC, which is Signet,
yes,
be the first entity to do the signal distribution.
Yes.
That was the intention of government, and it was to fully fund this entity, so that during the 3-year simulcast period, what I mean by simulcast is the period during which we have both the digital and analog signal on air.
Yes.
But however, there were challenges along the line, and especially in funding and timely funding.
Yes.
Government always has other priorities, like when we, in 2009, when we launched the pilot signal,
yes,
by Signet.
Yes.
A short period after that, there was a famine in the country, and the priority would then be not migration,
yes,
but to save lives of Kenyans by providing food. So one of the areas is that policy had to be reviewed.
Yes.
It was a challenge, of course, rolling out as fast as we needed to cover the whole country. So the policy was reviewed so that we could bring in some competition.
And we have seen that competition come up. We now have 3 distributors, including Signet, Panafric,
yes,
Panafric, and now the three media houses.
Yes, yes.
Now, as we wind up, I would like us to talk about what is the uptake of the set of boxes right now, where you sit at the Communication Authority of Kenya. Are people ready for the digital migration in the country?
Yes, I want to assure Kenyans that indeed in Nairobi, because we have had the digital signal since 2009,
yes,
the uptake of set-top boxes has really gone up, and especially in the last few weeks, when we heightened the consumer awareness campaigns through road shows, hodi-hodi activations, where we go actually to residential areas and try to inform Kenyans. We have also created a website where we have a lot of information. We are on social media.
yes,
And currently at mid-December, the uptake of set-top boxes had reached about 870,000.
yes.
We expect in the last few weeks, because of the heightened activity towards the switch of tonight, we should have hit about 1 million.
Yes.
And we estimate that in Nairobi we have about 1.2 million households with television sets. So as usual, Kenyans wait until the last minute, and because of what has happened in the past, where the dates has been postponed, there are Kenyans who, not because they cannot afford set-top boxes, but they are waiting to actually hear if it has again been postponed. But when the reality dawns on them tomorrow, the set-top boxes are here from the returns we get from the vendors, and
yes,
also from the Kenya Revenue Authority. We have over 1.3 million set-top boxes, the stocks that are currently in the country. So there is no shortage of set-top boxes. They are both free to air, and they also pay TV boxes. And I would just want to quickly add that the prices of set-top boxes has been going down. In 2009,
yes,
the set-top boxes were retailing between 10 and 15,000, and that is the initial standard, the DVB-T1. Now, we changed in 2010 to DVB-T2, which is a more superior standard in that you can pack in more channels. And apparently, the set-top boxes have become much cheaper. And of course, because one, the intervention of government to remove the import duty. Secondly, the Communication Authority of Kenya waived the vendor registration fee, as well as reduced the type approval or certification fee for these gadgets from 20,000 to 4,000. We have now over 60 vendors who are selling these gadgets. And so the prices are generally, for pay TV, they are retailing between 1,700 or 1,800. And for free to air, we have, the prices have come down all the way from 15,000, 10,000, now they are about 3,000, the lowest priced set-top box. And there are times when Kenyans say that these gadgets are not affordable, but we can afford to have personal phones when a set-top box is only, you require only one for a whole family.
Yes.
So we can afford the set-top boxes. And there are many benefits.
Yes.
There are a lot of benefits of digital migration, which I need to add. One of the things is that because digital migration will allow us to free a lot of frequencies, which shall be used for other services like broadband or internet,
yes,
which is, and even mobile services. We
yes,
have seen a lot of transformation in this country. We also seeing creation of jobs in this country as a result of expansion of the media space.
yes.
Before, we could only afford to have about 14 analog TV broadcasters in the whole country.
Yes.
Right now, as we talk here, we have over 30 free-to-air TV stations, and
30
many
to 40.
more are being licensed.
Yes.
So a lot of young Kenyans, you know, there is creation of employment. People who have talents to work in the media industry have an opportunity now to, you know, to get jobs, as well as the other businesses that are created as a result of the set-top boxes sale.
Yes.
And also in the pay TV industry, the distribution of the set-top boxes, as
Yes.
well as subscription services.
Mr. Alfred Ambani, I appreciate your time. I would have appreciated talking about the misconceptions outside there, but I know these misconceptions, you have highlighted them in your roadshows, and I believe we are ready now, because the country is ready for the analog to digital switch off tonight.
Maybe you can allow me 1 minute just to point out something.
Yes.
One of the things is that because of misinformation, there are, of course, some media houses who are opposed or who had a negative view about digital migration,
Yes.
and they deliberately decided to misinform Kenyans. And the reality we want to tell Kenyans is that you don't need 3 set-top boxes to migrate to digital. You only need 1 set-top box. And there are 2 types of set-top boxes. There is a free-to-air set-top box, which once you buy, you watch the free-to-air channels. And they are increasing. Right now I'm talking about more than 30 channels.
Yes.
We are licensing more.
Yes.
And these 30 channels are actually on air. If you have that set-top box, you will watch them.
Yes.
Then there is, so that one there is no monthly fee.
Yes.
You buy the set-top box and that is it. You'll
Yes.
watch for life,
Yes.
the channels. Then there is the pay TV set-top boxes, which is a subscription service. So the business model of pay TV is that every month you pay. And that's why sometimes the set-top boxes for subscription services are usually subsidized, because you are paying every month, so they are able to recover the cost of the set-top box slowly. So for consumers, all you need, 1 is the set-top box.
Yes.
Number 2, you don't need to throw away your television, analog television. It is still useful. You will still use that television. The set-top box enables you to be able to receive the digital signal so that it can be translated in a way that it can be displayed on your analog TV. So all you need, you'll retain your aerial.
Yes.
Other than the set-top box, you don't need to buy anything else. So you connect your aerial to the set-top box, and then the set-top box, you connect it to the television. The same way you connect your DVD player, and you'll be able to receive the digital signal. Actually, the coverage of the digital signal has already matched the analog signal in this country.
Right now.
Yeah, and we expect that as we continue to migrate to the digital platform, there'll be expansion in terms of rollout in
Yes.
the sites that are covered, and consumers will be able, in some areas where there was literally no signal, they'll be able to receive so many channels.
Yes. Mr. Alfred Ambani, I appreciate your coming to speaking to us on Ebro Africa Prime Time News. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Now we were speaking to Alfred Mutua, trying to tell us what will happen tonight. We are migrating from analog platform to digital platform, that is in Nairobi and its environs. Now let's move on to other stories making headlines tonight. President Uhuru Kenyatta has appointed former police officer Joseph Kipchirchir Boynet as the new Inspector General of Police. Kipchirchir will replace David Kimayo, who retired from the service. The president also appointed Samuel Arachi as the acting Inspector General, while David Kimayo got another job as the Kenya Airports Authority chairman. Here's the story.
The newly appointed Inspector General of Police, Kipchirchir Boynet, is a policeman who joined the service in 1984. In his career, he has served in the Kenyan missions in Harare and Rome as a desk officer. He was later seconded on foreign affairs as head of protocol.
Mr. Joseph Boynet hails from Kapklan, Keyo District, and is an accomplished public officer with in-depth knowledge in strategic and security areas, drawn both from training and more than 3 decades.
Kipchirchir Boynet has 2 master's degrees, one in security management and the other in diplomacy. He recently completed a course in security policy analysis from Australia.
In view of these competencies, I am convinced that Mr. Boynet will take our National Police Service.
As the new nominee awaits vetting and approval by Parliament in January, Deputy Inspector General Samuel Arachi will be serving as the acting Inspector General. The President also appointed the former Inspector General David Kimayo as the chairman of the Kenya Airports Authority.
Now to a story that should worry parents. Learning activities in public schools across the country are likely to be paralyzed come January 5th, 2015. The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, that is KUPPET, today formally announced that all members of KUPPET will boycott classes after talks with government over pay and allowance increment flopped.
Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
There will be no need for schools to open with our teachers reporting to duty.
The strike notice means teachers who are members of the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers will not be on duty when schools reopen on Monday, 5th of January 2015, unless the government responds to their demands.
We shall not be moved. Tunataka pesa pa.
KUPPET National Governing Council, at a press conference on Wednesday morning, declared an industrial action, saying that there is no offer from the government despite several consultative meetings. KUPPET claims there is lack of serious engagement with the government.
The public should be aware that KUPPET membership are not there next week, and they will not work until their grievances are met through constructive engagement. And that is the reason for which we are now calling upon the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Labour to take over the proceedings and to avert a serious crisis in education subsector.
KUPPET senior officials have accused the Salary and Remuneration Commission of interference in the negotiations, despite the fact that the mandate is clear in the Constitution, saying that there is a threat to interfere with existing CBA on commuter allowance and special school allowances.
Unasema pia Sara Serema amekuwa ni kama headmaster fulani. Kwa hivyo tunamwambia aende asome constitution, ajue mandate yake. Sawa sawa? Na iko clearly defined in the constitution.
The looming nationwide teacher strike will seriously interrupt the school's calendar and will have a negative impact on the selection of Form 1 process, which is expected to kick off in January.
There will be no need for schools to open with our teachers reporting to duty. There will be no need for head teachers who are our members to report to the selection centers for Form 1.
The strike notice by the union comes hours after the Teachers Service Commission accused the Kenya National Union of Teachers and KUPPET of abandoning the negotiating table without exhausting all available options, and invited the teachers' unions for a meeting on 3rd January, where the Commission will table a comprehensive response to their demands.
We shall not be moved.
KUPPET Secretary General Akelo Misori says they will attend the meeting but will not drop the call for industrial action until the government responds to their demands.
The meeting we will definitely attend, but the strike notice stands and continues until our grievances are addressed.
TSC says it has a new offer for teachers and asked KUPPET and NAT to call off the strike scheduled for Monday. The battle between the Teachers Service Commission and teachers across the country who are demanding for salary increment and improved allowances has just begun. Now, Kenyans across the country are hoping that the government will do all it can to avert the looming teacher strike that is expected to begin on the 5th of January 2015. For Abro Africa TV in Nairobi, I'm Brenda Zeda Radido.
Moving on, a dwindling number in tourist arrivals is expected to have a further negative impact on Kenya's tourism industry, even in the coming year. Tourism is a key source of hard currency inflows for East Africa's biggest economy, but a spate of militant terror attacks has put pressure on the shilling.
Growth in Kenya's economy, the largest in East Africa, slowed in the 3rd quarter as the tourism industry contracted following a spate of attacks carried out by militants. Gross domestic product rose 5.5% on an annual basis from July to September, compared with 5.7% the quarter earlier. That compares with expansion of 6.6% in the 3rd quarter last year. Output from accommodation and restaurants category shrank 14.6% from a year earlier, with the industry contracting for the 7th straight quarter. Tourism has been affected by gun and grenade attacks in the country, mainly claimed by Al-Qaeda's affiliate, Al-Shabaab. In the after effects of terror attacks, Kenya's tourism earnings tumbled down to 20%. Now, with the newly enacted security laws and a change of guard in the security docket, it is hoped that things will get better in the tourism industry.
Now, this year saw planned reforms that were set to improve the overall business environment in the country. We look at different sectors of the economy, such as transport, agriculture and petroleum industries, to see what they had to say about the experience in year 2014 and their expectations in the new year.
2014 will go down memory lane as the year that had its own setbacks as well as business growth. As Kenyans prepare to usher in 2015, we can't ignore the fact that there was enormous reforms in different industries, and we took it to the streets to hear what Kenyans had to say. Earlier this year, when the Ministry of Transport announced that all PSV vehicles were to use a cashless fare system, most PSVs took this move negatively. But with time, some PSVs have embraced this change and are asking more PSVs to embrace the new system for a better year ahead.
Cashless ikiweza kuingia kwa kila mahali itakuwa poa sana kwa sababu itapunguza wizi, then you can manage your money. Kiweka kama for example sisi tunalipisha itebob, so hata kama ni student ukimwekea 1000 unajua itaenda karibu mwezi, utaweza pia inaweza kuonyesha change ile how much imebakisha, so unaweza tu kumuongezea.
Still in the transport industry was the move by President Uhuru Kenyatta to allow matatus to have graffiti. This, according to the matatu operators, has improved business and expect more support from the government in 2015.
Graffiti now, hiyo ndo the best thing so far Mr. President amefanya for now. Juu inafanya poa sana, makastoma wanasema wako poa. Wanadai for now wanaweza tofautisha gari za kwenda wapi na wapi. Unajua iko zingine zote zilikuwa zinafanana juu ya zilikuwa tu zimepakwa normal way. So sai graffiti wanajua gari ni ya wapi and everything.
Farming is one of the sectors that is quickly catching up in our country, and business vendors in the marketplaces have asked the government to reduce prices of farm input next year for higher purchase of the market sale.
Sana wanashindwa na kulima. Mayai inaingia kwa soko ikiwa bei juu sana. Lakini tuna hope next year itakuwa better off sababu tunasikia government wata-intervene na wakulima watakuwa wengi, sababu raw materials farmer watakuwa wengi.
Late this year, the Energy Regulatory Commission announced reduction of fuel prices, and this came as a relief for motorists and owners of private vehicles. While some consumers have complained that the reduction had no impact, they want the government to ensure a further reduction in 2015.
2015, we expect the government to as they regulate, to ensure that we get the benefits as consumers, and we hope the prices will remain around $50 per barrel.
Those are being felt at a very high rate. Okay, now we can say the consumption of fuel has increased, but the amount it had been using has reduced.
As the country anxiously waits to usher in the new year, Kenyans are looking forward to more reforms and devolution in the business sector.
Now, we have been bringing to you a record of a series of events in the country this year. Here is something to be happy about. Events that had positive impacts on the country's population and development. Here's a roundup of the events that put smiles on the faces of Kenyans.
During his inaugural speech, President Uhuru Kenyatta promised economic transformation through Vision 2030. Unity among all Kenyans, and that he will serve all Kenyans.
I, Uhuru Kenyatta, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya.
He also promised to improve the standards of education in the country, a move that was welcomed by many. This year, Uhuru's government set aside more than 7 billion shillings for vulnerable children and 4.9 billion shillings for elders to cover 450,000 households. If there is one thing the Jubilee administration prized, it is education. The government already began to connect every primary school in the Republic to the national grid, a project that will be completed by the end of the next financial year. This year saw nearly 8,000 young men and women join the discipline services to strengthen them for the challenges to come. The young men and women entered a police service whose conditions of service are rapidly improving, new housing and insurance cover. President Uhuru also launched several major development projects in Kenya, including the world's largest geothermal power plant at Olkaria. The plant is expected to bring down power costs in Kenya by 30%. Under Uhuru's administration, the economy has grown at the rate of 5.7% per annum and is expected to retain this rate of growth. The World Bank has stated that the economy is resilient and sentiments positive following a successful Eurobond issue in June 2014, which raised $2 billion. On 22nd September 2014, the Uhuru administration concluded its Article 4 consultation with the IMF, and the overall assessment on debt sustainability and other indicators was found to be positive, and IMF lauded Uhuru's economy policies. Poverty levels in the country have dropped but are still considerably high, with 42% living below the poverty line.
A percentage of what the Jubilee government promised in their manifesto being felt here, but a lot more is expected come the new year 2015. Here on Ebro Africa Primetime News, we take a short commercial break, but when we come back, here's what you should expect.
DNA of Air Asia victims conducted. A safe Afghanistan, foreign troops leaving.
Now, although shooting had died down, a senior West African diplomat said gunmen controlled parts of the capital on Tuesday afternoon. Gambian President Yahya Jammeh was abroad either in France or Dubai when the violence broke out. Now, callers on opposition online radio stations urged residents to rise up and keep him from returning. Jammeh took power himself in a coup 20 years ago and since then has stifled dissent in his tiny, impoverished West African nation. Now, he has come under increased criticism from abroad over issues ranging from human rights to his claims that he can cure AIDS. Witnesses in the center of Banjul, which is situated on an island and connected to the rest of the city by the Denton Bridge, said security forces were stationed on street corners and were patrolling streets after hours of shooting early on Tuesday. But a French Foreign Ministry spokesman said Jammeh was not on an official trip in Paris, and diplomatic sources said there was no indication he was in France on a private visit. Now, earlier this year, the European Union withdrew millions of dollars in aid shortly after Jammeh signed into law an act that could imprison homosexuals for life. Now, in 2012, he was criticized for executing 9 people being held in prison. In recent years, He has frequently reshuffled senior military and civilian officials, a policy that has prevented potential rivals acquiring power but has also stoked instability.
To Libya now, a suicide bomber detonated a car laden with explosives in front of a hotel where Libya's elected parliament was in session in the eastern city of Tobruk on Tuesday. According to the assembly spokesman, 3 deputies and 8 other members were wounded in that attack.
Video posted on a social media website purports to show the aftermath of an explosion in a Tobruk hotel where Libya's elected parliament is in session, wounding 3 deputies and 8 others. The bombing is the biggest attack on the parliament since its setup in Tobruk near the Egyptian border. The assembly, which was elected in June, shifted its seat to Tobruk for security reasons after violence in its planned location, the eastern port city of Benghazi, worsened. Until now, Tobruk has been relatively secure compared to the rest of Libya, which has been in violent turmoil since Muammar Gaddafi was toppled nearly 4 years ago. A car bomb in November targeted the city, but not parliament itself. Libya's conflict is pitting former rebel brigades, which helped oust Gaddafi in 2011, but now fight for power and a share of Africa's biggest oil reserves. Details of Tuesday's bombing were not clear. Another lawmaker at the scene said the attack was a car bomb, not a suicide attack. Officials often contradict themselves in Libya, which has now efficient state institute of police. The House of Representatives in Tobruk is allied to the internationally recognized government of Prime Minister Abdul Al-Thani, who was also forced to relocate after Libya Dawn took control of the capital. Thani is based in the city of Bayard, while the parliament set up in the Tobruk hotel. An initial plan to relocate to the port city of Benghazi was called off as it was judged too dangerous. Libya Dawn has established its own parliament in Tripoli, though this has not been recognized by world powers.
Still in West Africa, but now in Tunisia, veteran Tunisian politician Beji Caid Essebsi has been sworn in as the country's new president today as part of the final step of a transition to democracy after an uprising that ousted autocrat Zain El Abidine Ben Ali in 2011.
The ceremony was held just over 4 years after the start of the protest, which eventually unseated Ben Ali. Essebsi, a former Ben Ali official, beat rival Monsef Marzouki with 55.68% of the votes against 44.32% in a runoff ballot, the country's first free presidential elections held earlier this month. His secular party Nida Tones called for Tunisia profited from a backlash against the post-revolt Islamic government, which many voters blamed for turmoil after 2011. Critics of Essebsi, an 88-year-old who has spent 5 decades in Tunisian politics, see his return as a setback for the 2011 uprising that ousted Ben Ali and put the North African country on the road to full democracy with a new constitution and free parliamentary and presidential elections. The Tunisian uprising also inspired the Arab Spring revolts across North Africa and the Middle East.
In Turkey, a former television presenter was detained by police for posting a tweet suggesting a cover-up in a government corruption scandal in a new case highlighting deteriorating media freedoms in that country.
Sadef Kabash said she was being questioned after telling her Twitter followers not to forget the name of a judge who dropped a corruption and bribery probe earlier this year.
It is because of the tweet that I'm arrested.
The government did not immediately confirm Kabash's detention, which several private media companies have reported. The corruption scandal, which broke last year, implicated people close to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and led to the ouster of 4 ministers. The government, citing an alleged plot to remove it from office by followers of Fethullah Gulen, an influential US-based Muslim cleric, moved to reassign hundreds of police, prosecutors and judges, including those involved in the case. The case was later dropped, leading to opposition accusations of a cover-up.
I think we should not be afraid when it comes to key issues. No one should put fear in you. I'm not afraid. I believe in justice and I believe in Turkey. For me, nothing will change. I will keep on expressing myself today and even tomorrow the same way, and I stand by what I said.
In a related development, a judicial body which oversees judges and prosecutors suspended 4 prosecutors on Tuesday who had initiated the corruption probes from duty pending the outcome of an investigation into whether they had abused their powers. Earlier this month, police raided a newspaper and a TV station, detaining journalists, producers and even scriptwriters, sparking criticism from the European Union and the United States and protests across Turkey.
To Indonesia now, where the search and rescue officials say preparations are underway in Surabaya to help with the identification process of the retrieved bodies from the Air Asia plane crash site.
Indonesian police say DNA and other data is being collected from next of kin to help identify the bodies retrieved from the Air Asia wreckage.
Bayangkara Police Hospital has collected the antemortem data from families to identify victims, such as DNA samples from children, parents, and other relatives. So far, 93 families have contributed data. 30 DNA samples have been taken as of now.
The search was continuing off the coast of Kalimantan in Borneo despite adverse weather.
The weather now is bad over there. It would not be possible for the divers to go into the water.
An official from Indonesia's search and rescue agency said on Wednesday a sonar image showed a large dark object about 30 to 50 meters under the sea and was presumed to be the missing plane. Crews are standing by to collect and identify bodies.
Our priority now is not to search for the plane, but the retrieval of the victims.
Bodies as well as debris were found on Tuesday for the first time since the Air Asia flight went missing. Search crews have yet to retrieve the plane's flight data recorders, often known as the black box. About 30 ships and 21 aircraft from Indonesia, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea and the United States have been involved in the search.
Afghanistan National Security Forces are ready to take full control of the country's security. This follows the withdrawal of NATO and US troops from the country, marking an end of an era.
According to a spokesperson from Afghanistan's Ministry of Interior, the US and NATO-led International Security Assistance Forces held a ceremony on Sunday in the Afghan capital of Kabul to mark the end of a 13-year-old war on terror and the completed handover of security responsibilities to the Afghan National Security Forces, which will formally assume control on January 1st.
Of course we are ready. We have taken the lead at least for 1 year, past year. We will take this responsibility with pride and dignity. This is the day that we waited, actually.
About 13,000 NATO servicemen, including 10,800 Americans, are supposed to remain in Afghanistan in 2015 to train and advise Afghan soldiers. The Afghan National Security Forces are mainly made up of the Afghan National Army, ANA, under the Ministry of National Defense, the Afghan National Police, ANP, under the Ministry of Interior, and intelligence agents under the Ministry of State Security.
The Afghan armed forces have 3 weak points, namely the transportation of weapons, training and leadership. If we cannot improve them, we will not have effective troops.
Many Afghans have mixed feelings about the withdrawal of the ISAF forces. Some people believe their forces should assume sovereignty and bring peace after years of continual war, while others are concerned that the security situation could deteriorate after the drawdown of the foreign troops. During the 13-year war on terror, more than 3,500 servicemen, about 2,200 of them being Americans, lost their lives in Afghanistan.
Our final report tonight is about Ebola. Scottish nurse who became the first person to be diagnosed with Ebola in Britain is being treated at a London hospital after contracting the disease in West Africa.
A health worker who has become the first person to be diagnosed with Ebola in Britain is rushed to London's Royal Free Hospital for treatment. The hospital identified her as Pauline Cafferkey, a 39-year-old Scottish nurse who had been working in Sierra Leone. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, offers an update.
She is doing as well as can be expected in the circumstances.
Cafferkey reportedly was working for Save the Children in Sierra Leone. Authorities say Cafferkey was diagnosed at an early stage, and her risk to others is extremely low, but her contacts are being investigated. More than 7,800 people have been killed by the deadly virus, mostly in West Africa.
And that's all we had for you on today's edition of Ebru Africa Primetime News, that is the New Year's Eve edition. As we wind down year 2014, Ebru Africa TV family wishes you a happy and prosperous year 2015. I'm Sam Gakunyi. Many thanks for keeping us company. You can continue watching Ebru Africa TV. The program up next is Changamka. Good night.